welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub. I'm a Sunday morning coffee boy. I got my coffee. Dan was in New York, and I wasn't drinking a lot of coffee, so it's nice to be back on my Java Bean Jive.
Dan is very good at having all that coffee ready in the morning when you wake up. It's brilliant. Hi, my name is Michael Willer. I'm a chubby chaser, and I too am a coffee boy. I've got my Dutch Bros treat coffee. Michael went out and picked up some breakfast and some coffee. Feeling good, feeling ready to have an excellent show.
Hey, my name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I'm a well-vacationed vacation boy. I spent a long weekend out in Wrightwood, California, in a ski town in the wilds of August. But had a great time getting back in touch with nature and reconnecting with some of my old college friends. So
nice. That sounds great.
Oh, it was really good. I missed these guys.
Oh, good. Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and I am still riding the high of discovering new booze in theater basements.
What? Dan Oliverio, basement lush.
Okay, so what that means is that if you go to see Broadway theaters, the bar is inevitably in the basement, and it's a very nice basement. And I was introduced to a substance known as peanut butter whiskey.
Oh,
which I told you about, Michael.
Yeah, I remember this.
Is there a jelly flavored mixer you could put with it?
Oh my God, I'd love that.
You'd need it. You would have to.
There is a contingent making the peanut butter martini with grape juice.
Rye bread toast garnish.
Oh God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Although I would taste it.
Thank you as always to our partners and patrons on Patreon. And you, listener, thank you. A little pat on the head.
For good behavior.
Just a reminder, you can save 15% off your bearskin order by using promo code BigFatGayPod. Get yourself a mattress, support the podcast, use our affiliate link to purchase a Big Fig mattress and save $200, dollary dues. That's like 30 cups of coffee.
And they usually have sales. I think a Labor Day sale is probably coming up. We'll keep you guys posted on that.
Yeah. Also, check out our Discord or sign up for a newsletter.
Oh yeah, there's a newsletter.
We have fostered a wonderful little community on Discord.
Yeah.
We have people running game nights. People are discussing the Biggest Loser documentary that has come out. I don't know if we're going to talk about that or not, because I'm hearing mixed things, and also it's 3 parts.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I'm ready to enjoy that.
That is so much Biggest Loser. I don't know if I can do that.
If you're curious, because I think we have had a pretty steady stream of people kind of popping into the Discord over the last few months. And if you're curious, like, okay, well, what would I get out of that? It's a gathering space. It's like everybody that belongs in this community and the conversations you would expect to have with somebody that gets you. But also, like, there's so many different topics. Like, so if you're not interested in video games, well, great, because there's a whole other subject about music, or there's a vent channel where if something happens that you need to get off your chest, people will listen to you and, give you, support and feedback. There's so many areas. Somebody went on there, I think within the last couple of days, and was talking about their Big Fig mattress that they got and that they love. And so, like, there's just so much stuff to kind of opt into. Yeah, we have Jackbox game nights run by Darcy, like every week pretty much, which is awesome. It's a good spot.
Yeah. Well, let's bring out the penguins and start the show.
Yes, please.
Do the penguins come out from the floor? Do they come out from the side?
Oh, everywhere.
No, they slide on their belly. They slide down on their bellies from a great ice slope.
Yeah, there are slides. There's trapdoors that open
I picture
up,
little tiny
platforms.
penguin knees that they slide in on with jazz wings up.
Let's get into some pop culture. So I love when a pop culture subject feels like a fat watch. It's like a nice benefit. So in People, we have an article by Meredith Wilshire. It's titled "Plus Size Park Hoppers Say Brutal Backlash Over Their Experiences at Disney Theme Parks Won't Stop Them." It's about Stephanie Lanciani and her friends who have gained a following on TikTok and Instagram, showcasing accessibility at Disney parks. I think maybe more specifically Disney World, which is the one that they tend to go to. But it's fantastic because they're all plus size women. They basically said, like, I would love to ride on, I think the specific ride they were wondering about was the Avatar one back in 2017. They're like, we don't see a lot of content about whether or not somebody our size would fit. And so they said, fuck it, we're doing this ourselves. They put on the Infinity Gauntlet and created social media channels specifically because they each occupy a different size from roughly 2X to 5X. And so they will go to the parks. They'll show you all of their tips for navigating them, including what kind of scooters to get, what companies to rent from, how you can transport them, whether or not they have like an awning to protect you from the sun. They will go sit in the test seats and give you a thumbs up or thumbs down with their clothing size so that you can kind of look at them and see the size. And then if they fit, then maybe you'll fit too. And it's exactly what we've been asking for. Yeah. It's like, this is what's great. This is what we want.
Theme parks are a thing that most people love. It's not everybody's thing, but there's a reason why they're everywhere and why in every country. When we first addressed the accessibility of Disneyland on our show, we got a lot of letters and a lot of write-ins from people who, like, it never occurred to them they could enjoy Disneyland.
Yeah.
We just took it for granted. These things are not for us, so fuck it, give it up. So these women going out and braving the storm for the rest of us is such a good thing.
Yeah.
Even on my last trip to Universal, I waited online for the Harry Potter like broomstick ride.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Well, I sat in the test seat out front. I'm like, I fit. It kind of closes. It's good, right? I got halfway through the line before an attendant pulled me out of the line, made me sit in a test seat in front of them, and then vetoed me.
Oh my God.
So
doesn't it have a little like, because when we went with Dan Sorrentina, who came over from Austria, she did the test seat, and there was like, I remember there was like a little like green light, red light thing on it, I think. Where
no,
it was
no
like,
green light, red light when I was there.
That is a comparatively new invention. I haven't been to Disneyland in a while, and at Disneyland, I don't remember seeing any test seats ever. Now, maybe that's changed.
Yeah, Disneyland is not great for that.
They didn't do that for Disneyland. I haven't seen a test seat there.
Yeah.
there's a couple rides that have, I think they're more meant to be like photo ops.
Yes.
Like the teacups, they have it. And
But I think that's a smaller teacup to fit in frame. Yeah.
I just love the plus size park hoppers have come up on my TikTok algorithm that I've been using it more. It's actually starting to get me now, which I mean, this has been like years of me having this TikTok account, but I would get them sometimes. And it's like, they do all these things showing tips and tricks and accessibility stuff, but also like, it's just them having a fun time at the park and like rating snacks and stuff. And it's just very like positive vibes. And like, you feel like I want to go to the park with you guys, but you know, they are fat people, especially, you know, fat women in public online. So they get a lot of backlash to the point to where before I saw this People article, I started to get videos of just like random TikTok accounts defending them and being like, there are these wonderful women doing videos showing how to navigate the parks as a fat person. And like, they are getting a ridiculous amount of backlash. And like, they're so nice. Go give them some love in the comments. Go give them support. Follow them. Because it's just like people are fat phobic and being dickheads.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to see people rallying around them, which I think is one of the things I love about this is like they have their social media approach of like, here's what we're going to share. But then they have also been organizing meetups with their fans and followers at the parks saying, hey, they now go like once every month or so. And they say, here's when we're going. You can meet us there. And she said, like, when she gets hit, you know, with those nasty comments, the thing that really, I guess, matters in the grand scheme that she focuses on is moments like when she describes in this article, like two mothers meet up and exchange numbers because they gathered together at a space that she created.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And gave them the opportunity to then become friends and come to Disney World again on their own terms and being able to kind of get that confidence and that clearance to go out and like make a new friend and meet them out in public. And that is what matters. That's what it's about.
Agreed. You know who believes that? Edward the Eagle. Take us away. Fat Watch 2025. We go over to the Atlantic here for an article by Jessica Slice. Homes still aren't designed for a body like mine. Why is it so hard for disabled people to find safe, accessible places to live?
I love this article so much.
This one was an eye-opener for me. It's written by a woman who is very blunt about her experience in her living situation due to the lack of availability of housing that allows her to live with the dignity that you would expect anyone to have in any situation.
Yeah, her own house is not accessible to her.
And that's something that literally never occurred to me, that your own house may not be able to accommodate your wheelchair or whatever situation you're in. And for her, like she goes into example, like she needs to live near the university where she works. So like the geographical area is limited of where she can live. The housing available there is going to be how many houses there have the wider door frame for her wheelchair to fit through, or
ramps to get in.
You know, writing about the experience where when the fire alarm goes off, the elevators in her building get shut off and she's on the 7th floor.
I thought it was so telling that they had a gas leak panic, which turned out to be false. But she was terrified, locked in her apartment with her kid with no way to get out. Yeah. And subsequent to that, she and her husband organized, they had a couple of friends over, neighbors, and they're like, okay, we bought a really huge duffel bag. I and my infant are going to climb into it. Will you carry me down the stairs if this ever happens again? And she just felt so vulnerable and so
heartbreaking.
I mean, at risk. And talk about dependent on the kindness of strangers. Yeah. They have to actually be home, not only willing, but home to do this, to make this maneuver.
And then remember when there's an emergency happening that they want to protect their own families from.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an additional portion of the article that really was eye-opening to me, where she's talking about having her own home and wanting to make the changes to her home that would make it possible to live with dignity in her own space. And then finding out that neighbors hosted meetings on how to block her from doing that because they didn't want the changes made to their neighborhood. Yeah. Held it on the 4th floor of a building with no elevator access so that she couldn't attend.
But still invited like a city councilor to help them navigate the system.
The punchline was that she heard from other people who attended the meeting. She could have gotten someone to carry her up the stairs. That's what my disabled friend does.
Right. That was about the house.
Yeah.
She didn't need a wheelchair accessible house because her husband could just carry her up the stairs. Yeah. Like that's what other disabled people I know do.
Yeah. There are anecdotes in here and we've told you a couple of them, but there are also interviews with other disabled people describing basically a lot of the same experiences. And I think it goes into a lot of details that are important to share about people who are marginalized that have an experience of life that you don't think about because you aren't living in their shoes, and most people don't think that way, even if we could improve society if we did. And so there are a lot of really specific experiences where, for instance, they found a house that they can make work for them, but one of the consequences is that if she's upstairs in like the master bedroom, she can't get downstairs easily. And so she spends a lot of her life just up in that room. And if, for instance, something happens downstairs, whether it's her family is watching a movie and laughing together, or you know, her 1-year-old trips and bunks his knee and is crying downstairs, like she can't go participate. And that's already in a home that they've decided is the best they can do. Like that's the best case scenario a lot of times because we have housing that is designed not to work for disabled people.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of issues about that. In Europe, there's things like you're living in buildings that are hundreds of years old very often. And certainly a lot of state buildings are hundreds of years old. And they're not designed for wheelchair access. And that's another issue. Where I want to shift this is bringing it back to fat community. Because if you think about this, one of the big things about anti-fat bias and fat phobia is blame. If someone who is not blamed for their situation is experiencing opposition from neighbors, the opposition from the neighbor came from the fact that, like, well, if we put a ramp outside her house, you know, imagine the eyesore that will be for the rest of the neighborhood. If people who are not normally blamed for their disability, I'm not saying that fat people are to blame, I'm saying that the perception is that they are. And that if people who aren't blamed are experiencing this kind of pushback, imagine the stigma faced by a fat person who, again, we just saw in our last article, well, you know, you shouldn't be on rides if you're that fat. You should lose weight if you want to go on those rides. Imagine someone who is in that situation. I've met so many fat people who just sort of tolerate, you know, of course their bathroom doesn't accommodate them and they don't have the money to refurbish it. I mean, even if like there's no neighbors involved, it's just an economic obstacle of making a bathroom accessible for them.
Yeah, I have talked to Michael about this before because back before we moved to where we are now and we're living together, he was living and working in Nashville. And the company that he worked for, right before the pandemic, they started building this massive new downtown office. And they put a huge amount of money into it as or corporate headquarters. And when they finished it, they took everybody off of work from home and were forcing them to come into the office, as a lot of places did. But in their case, it was because we spent all this money on it. Look how great it is. If you don't have time to go to the grocery store on the way home, you can shop in our small, shopping. They really added all of the things. They had a bar at the top, really wanted to entice people to be there and have a good time. But the problem is, it's like a 20-story building, and Michael couldn't help but think, if we get into a fire emergency or something, they will shut down the elevators, just like described in this article, and he has to try and go down 20 floors with a knee that's not gonna do that. Yeah. And he's like, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
How do I get out of it?
And unlike when you think of people in wheelchairs, you often think of someone who's small and frail. That is not the case with very fat people, and they're not going to get carried down the staircase.
Put my ass in a duffel bag and carry me down 7 flights.
Exactly right, Don. Exactly.
One of the blue IKEA bag. A lot of this resonated with me personally, and even just they describe renovations to the apartment that, as a renter you can do, but there's all these hoops you have to jump through.
Oh, tell them.
We went through that with my mom, who is, she's older, she has bad arthritis and stuff, and her shower, it was a very high step into it, and also there was no grab rails or anything.
It was a shower tub, yeah.
And the hoops and the paperwork and the emails and this was for us to pay for the grab bars and the renovation, installation. It was such an ordeal, and there's no way my mom could have done that on her own.
Oh, God, no.
All the communication and logistics and everything. And it's just, and also we're going to have to pay to have that removed and fixed when she moves out.
Yeah. The reason we're allowed to do it is that we're also going to pay for its removal. Because why would you want ugly grab bars around a shower?
I thought one of the really, just to this same point, one of the really salient things that Jessica observed, I think maybe quite generously, but also obviously she's had a lot of time to think about these things, is that she felt a degree of, I guess, sadness for the neighborhood organization or the neighbors that came together to block her from being able to make those renovations to her house because, as she pointed out, this is a lot of the same issues that will happen when you are also aging. You are becoming not just, middle-aged, but elderly. You will need a lot of the same types of accommodations that do not currently exist in your home. And that could very much ease the process of aging if your home is already set up to accommodate you. But people don't think that way because they're not thinking outside of, their own immediate experience.
Exactly. And I think the irony, I just want to underscore that you're pointing out, Michael, is that these same neighbors who are opposing these changes are very likely the same neighbors who will need these accommodations in 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, if they want to keep their homes, if they don't want to have to move to, an elderly home where they have those accommodations. Yeah, it's nuts that people don't have that way of thinking forward. And in that case, it was it's going to ruin the neighborhood by looking weird. But there are other places where it's like a historical society who says, oh, we want to honor our legacy. Well, it's how much of our legacy that is actually kind of awful do we want to continue to honor? How far do we take that?
Their direct opposition to things that would improve their life is just the clearest example I can think of how a lack of empathy is biting ourselves in our own asses. Because they refuse to think about their neighbors and their neighbors' benefit. They're eventually creating problems for themselves down the line and lowering the resale value of their own properties because those investments would improve their values. So screw these people.
I think it's part of a larger movement that we're seeing so alive and well in this country, which is, I don't like it, so you can't have it.
Yeah, it's not just that I opt out, it's that I opt you out for you.
I opt you out, because I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. That shouldn't exist. Therefore, you shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's elevating this type of awareness helps all of us.
Yeah.
And it's great to see.
Thank you, Jessica Slice. She has written and co-authored some books, including Unfit Parent, A Disabled Mother's Challenges in an Inaccessible World. She has a new book coming out. This is How We Talk and We Belong. I want to check out more of her stuff because this was just a very well-written piece and showed me a lot of stuff about inequality disability and just accessibility.
Yeah. I just want to do a quick plug here for The Atlantic magazine. This was in The Atlantic magazine, the story we're quoting, and there's just a lot of great pieces in that magazine. So you should consider subscribing.
Yeah, I shared this with a gift link that listeners should be able to use as well. There's a lot of stuff behind paywalls, but a lot of it is really good. I mean, that's why I subscribe, just because there's so many great pieces, and they pay a lot of good authors.
Just as a random tip, if you happen to run into paywalls as an issue trying to read one of the articles we talk about, if you go to the website archive.ph, it will let you input the link, and oftentimes there is an archived free-to-read version of that link that you can access. It's not always, but with larger publications, you can pretty much always find one.
Mm-hmm.
So today's main topic, boy, this is a topic that, you know, I've written about this in my book. I spoke about this before I wrote the book. And it's this issue of how people identify, which is always a sticky subject. And particularly in our case for this podcast, it's, well, sure, I have sex with fat people, but I'm not a chaser.
Yeah.
And when is that, okay, valid? And when is that, okay, you're just being a coward? And that is a really sticky question because you're talking about other people's identification.
Yeah.
So this was last week. I was talking to a chaser friend, and we were just catching up, and he was talking about this chub guy that, like, you know, was kind of a friends with benefits situation, but like really gushing about him. And then also just kind of talking about dating stuff. And it's like, oh, well, like, is there a reason you two aren't together? Because like, it seems like you're really compatible, but like, is there just other ways you're not compatible? And that's why you're not, like, you guys haven't gotten together. Because it really just seems like both of you are struggling to find people in your city.
And you found each other.
It seems obvious to me. And he's like, oh, well, I'm a civilian.
Yeah, I would never date a fat guy. I'm not a chubby chaser.
And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And it was such a pause in the conversation because we had really been going back and forth. And I actually messaged my other friend and then called them to be like, hey, so like, I don't know how to respond to this because I feel like there's no way for me to just like be like, haha, okay. Like I'm fuming.
Yeah.
And I copied the GIF from the Brady Bunch movie of like, sure, Jan. And I had that locked and loaded. I'm like, I feel like I can't send this because like, I feel like this will turn into like, I don't want to start a fight with this guy.
Well, yeah.
You also can't argue with someone about how they see themselves either.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. And it does no good. I used to do that. I've stopped doing that. It only puts you deeper in the hole. I will say this, because I can see a lot of people saying, well, you know, of course they have a right to identify however they want. Yes, but there's a point where that starts harming other people.
Yeah.
If you think back at remember the gay movies where you had these two, and they're usually gorgeous white men in love, and one of them says, oh, but I'm not gay, or but I don't want to live that kind of life. And it's a horrible, tragic love story. You've seen it 1,000 times in movies, in novels. E.M. Forrester's Morris is all about that. It's a fucking novel, and that is the central core of like, we're in love, but I couldn't possibly date you because you have a penis. And I'm just saying that it's not just that. It actually transmits itself to other identities, and it can harm people, and I think ultimately it harms society.
I agree, but I also think there is a difference in someone who has a kink and the way that sexuality is and expresses, and like the nutting. And I've had this conversation many times with guys, one of which was a guy who's like, I'm straight, I have a wife, I love my wife, I have sex with my wife. Fat guys are just neat. It's a fun hobby. And it's like, it's this other thing I like. I'm like, okay, but when you're having sex with your wife, are you in that moment with her and you guys really just like, you're thinking about how much you're attracted to her and how much you love her? Or are you thinking about fat guys? This would be great if I was having sex with a fat guy right now instead of my wife. And the silence and the like, he since has subsequently left his wife and he's in this community now and blah, blah, blah. And I am pretty sure that this guy I was talking to is not like, oh yeah, I love this other like bodybuilder, twink, whatever guy. Like, I wish I was having sex with an enormously fat guy right now.
So the reason why I don't like, I get what Dan's saying about like, you can't just change the way that they see themselves for them. Like that obviously can't work. I think the reason it worked in Trevor's case is not because of what Trevor said necessarily. It's because the guy was already seeing that for himself and just needed it reflected back at him from the outside.
And Trevor asked a really good question. He didn't make a statement.
But I think that the thing that is frustrating to me that makes me want to go out and shake all of these people who say stuff like that and think that's just the case is because we hear over and over and over and over and over again how chubs are having the hardest time finding chasers to date. Mm-hmm. And I think there can be a lot of reasons why that's the case that aren't necessarily to do with the availability of chasers, but this is a numbers game at a certain point. And if there are any amount of chasers saying, oh, well, I would never date a chub, that is immediately lowering the ratio in their favor. And that it just creates this sort of false scarcity. We know there should be enough people for everyone, but the chasers are opting out. They're dipping into the community, fucking whoever they want, and then leaving and enjoying the privilege of not looking fat.
It's really that. I don't want to give up the privilege of looking normal.
Yeah.
I get that. I begrudgingly respect that. But I think to say you are a civilian when you're like, maybe not exclusively having sex with fat guys, but like you are getting the most pleasure in your life sexually from that, or you're using that to have sex with other civilians.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that you have to be like, burr, 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 I'm a chaser. Like, fat guys are awesome. You don't need to start a podcast where you talk about it. Like, you don't need to be like on the Bigger Vegas website in the splash page picture.
Right.
But to tell chubs, gainers, fat women, whatever, that like, well, I'm just like, this is just like a fun thing. I'm not that guy. It's like, you are. And just, it's offensive.
Yeah.
I think often what they're not necessarily, when you do this, when you dip into a pool of people and designate them as for sex only, not for relationship consumption.
Bingo.
You're turning them into second-class citizens. And this is what Asian guys have been saying to the mainstream community forever. This is what bisexual guys have been saying to gay men and straight women for a very long time.
You know, back in the day, that maybe many listeners may be too young to remember, there was a whole thing of like, oh, bisexuals aren't real. Bisexuals are just people who haven't, gotten to gay yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's crap. That's crap.
Yeah.
But yet there is the phenomenon that a lot of people go through a quote unquote bisexual phase before they get to gay. That also happens. And so a lot of people, myself included, were like, well, how do you know? And it has to do with what Trevor says. And I'm bringing this up because a lot of men will say, well, I'm bisexual.
Yeah.
I date fat people, I date thin people. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Because it is absolutely true that for a lot of people, fat doesn't rule out a partner. Like fatness is not a disqualifying thing. And for many people, it is a prerequisite. And for many people, it is a third rail, and not going there. And that's fine. I'm not here to argue that. What I'm here to say is this idea of being bisexual, like, well, yeah, I fuck fat guys, but I wouldn't marry one. And here's the difference. It's again what you were saying, Don. The test for any sort of bisexual is if you have relegated one category for X and the other category for Y. For example, I had a friend who said he was bisexual. This is many years ago. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm bisexual. It's just that men are for sex and women are for relationships. I'm like, that's not bisexual.
Nope.
And the same way, if you're like, well, I'm bisexual, men are for, fat men are for sex and thin, successful men are for relationships. That's not bisexual. That's just a prejudice.
Yeah.
So I have a friend that is the friend who I reached out to during this, I'm a civilian outrage I had, who is a chaser and has kind of, I think in the past been like, well, I'm bisexual. He's like, no, I'm a chaser. But sometimes he's like, I really love eating ass, but I really only like eating like a muscular ass.
Oh, okay.
But he's like, but I wouldn't really want to be with a muscular guy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just really want to eat an ass and I will like seek out a muscular butt, but he also knows he couldn't really function being in a monogamous relationship with a bodybuilder because he knows he needs fat sex. Mm-hmm. Like that's just his primary drive. And I I respect that. Like, yeah, I'm a chaser, but I also like other guys, which to me is like less offensive than like, well,
because there's no stigma to being with a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like that is the difference. You're not taking the stigmatized group that you're attracted to and saying, I'm only going to deal with you in one particular way. He's saying, this is who I am. I love fat men. And sometimes I want to have my face, nose deep in a bodybuilder's ass. Like, okay, but that's not stigmatized besides the fact that you're gay. And in both cases, he's doing gay sex. So what does it matter?
So I had an interesting experience recently where I'm seeing this guy who is married, but his husband started taking Ozempic and lost a lot of weight. It was creating some differences in their sexuality with each other, right? So they have an open relationship.
Yep.
I started dating the husband. He's very clearly into my body. But when I started talking to him about the range of weights that I have experienced in my lifetime, and I told him like my biggest weight was around 540. He immediately just went like, oh, no, that's way too big for me. And then, but then I realized he doesn't define himself as a chaser. He didn't really know what chaser and chub really meant.
Yeah.
He just sort of existed in life and he knew he liked bigger guys. So because he existed in a range of attraction that he doesn't define as being chub chaser, he doesn't define himself that way.
Yeah.
He uses a different language. So sometimes I think the definitions that some civilian chasers use maybe try to exclude them from chub chasers in general.
Yeah, but there's also that thing, and you just put your finger on it, Don, where it's, oh, I'm a chaser, but I would never date someone that fat because, I mean, I may be weird, but I'm not that weird. There is that sort of, how far do I buy into the stigma?
And also, I think there is genuine attraction to body types too. Where
there is. But notice that his first impulse when you told him that size is, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Right. Like, is that the first, like, were you asking him specifically, would you be attracted to a person that size? Or did he just volunteer?
He volunteered. He volunteered that during the conversation.
Yeah. To let you know that he's not that kind of sicko.
Yeah.
I just feel like whenever that comes up with chasers, it's always this like, I've referenced this several times. I feel like I'm the only one in the four of us that gets this, but I feel like many listeners will, of like SpongeBob with his little smirk, like, you like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward? Like he doth protest too much. And it's having a fat kink and having internalized fat phobia go hand in hand. Like, I know in the case of the guy that I mentioned that prompted this topic, like it would be a whole shit show if he came home with a fat boyfriend, especially like a very, very fat boy. Like there are lab engineered scenarios where it's like, this is how you give someone a fat kink. Like just with like,
I want to say this. I'm going to drop this in here. To my mind, and people are free to disagree, being a chaser is not a kink. It's no more a kink than being gay and saying, well, like, I didn't like guys instead of women. There are kinks that are fat kinks, like encouraging and other things like that. But just being a chaser, just being a garden variety chaser is not a kink sexuality. And I feel compelled to make that distinction because I think there's going to be a lot of people out there is like, well, I don't have a kink, so I'm not a chaser. It's like, no. You're right. There is that's separate. But you can just like fat guys and not be kinky. You can also be kinky and like fat guys. You can also be kinky and not like fat guys. They're independent variables.
You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. I will say though that you will see on the other side too, right? You see the other kind of chaser who is like, why are you even speaking to me? You're not even 500 pounds. Why would I acknowledge your existence? And yeah, I know people don't read personal ads. I mean, I prefer guys who are much on the bigger side. And yeah, I do get guys who are like, 200 pounds saying like, oh, wow, I would love to get in bed with you. I don't excoriate them. I'm just like, have you read my profile?
I'll be honest, at Bigger Vegas, there were a couple moments where I was standing next to a much bigger guy and suddenly like, I felt so invisible, like,
but it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Just be polite. Just be fucking polite.
It's so frustrating because it's like you don't have to, if the conversation is actually about what is your range of attraction, then I think there is a healthy way to communicate that.
Absolutely.
To the extent that you understand yourself without making the other person bad or wrong for maybe not fitting into that range. There's a way to do that without being a dick, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And chasers based on the stories that I hear from chubs, chasers almost never care to make that communication palatable.
And I think one of the reasons, because I was just thinking about this as you were saying it, let's say if a woman came up to you, Michael, and made a pass at you, you would have no qualms about saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not into women.
Yeah.
And that's because, being a woman in and of itself is not stigmatized. Yes, women face a lot of discrimination, but just existing as a woman is not grounds for shame and, things like that. If someone comes up to you and they make a pass and you would never say, oh, I'm sorry, you're not fat enough, or you're not even fat.
No.
You would never do that. And it's a difference because being fat is a stigmatized body. And a lot of chasers don't get that. They really have no experience moving through the world as a fat person, and they don't get that it is offensive to remark something like that when it would be not if you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not into women. Like, that would be completely acceptable. Or I'm sorry, I'm not into guys, or whatever.
I think this might be one of the things that has caused issues with me with some of my chaser lovers in the past, which is I feel like to understand our own sexuality requires us thinking about it and talking about it with people that we're close to. Our sexual partners, especially for more closed off, like masculine, manly types, they don't talk about emotions much, except with people they're sexually intimate with or approaching that orbit with. Now, when you're talking about your attraction to fat people and you're unlocking all of these new territories for yourself, there's going to be some realizations and some thoughts that can be wildly uncomfortable for a fat person to hear. But when the chaser doesn't have any other opportunity to talk about that sort of sexuality with anyone except their fat partners, that may be some of the things that are causing friction and problems between our chasers. Like, I've had conversations with chasers where, in retrospect, they were exploring their own sexuality, thinking out loud about what brought them to my bed.
Yes.
But they're using language that is so offensive to my core, right? Where I am either no longer male. In some cases, we're like, oh, your beautiful curves, the fullness of your breasts. Like, you're taking some things away from me here while you're going through your shit. This is another reason why I think it's a really healthy thing for chasers to connect with other chasers, to talk about your sexuality so you can try and get some understanding and perspective on it.
Brilliant.
That doesn't involve driving me through a briar patch for you to get there.
Exactly. You need to process with other chasers. Again, and it's the same way, we've made this discovery a lot of time with racial issues that, sometimes white people need to process their racism with other white people first. Like, don't inflict this on your black friends. And I think that is often the case here where, if you need to process your sexuality, your doubts, your stigmas, your whatever, do that with another chaser. Number one, they're much more qualified.
Yeah.
Because a fat person really does not know what you're going through and may often not have sympathy. Like, Don, you may intellectually have sympathy for a chaser who's dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. But I can guarantee I may not have felt the same way as you.
Right. And it is absolutely valid for you to say, like, I'm sorry, I'm not your therapist. I am not your free processing. This is an appropriate conversation to have with me. It is another reason that chasers must talk to each other. And we often don't, except in that sort of comparing notches on the bedpost stupid shit. Like, what's the biggest guy you've been with? Oh, I've been with this guy. Who have you been with? Well, what have you heard about so-and-so? It's like, it is so because guys, number one, tend not to just spontaneously discuss their feelings, especially their insecurities, and especially not with other men.
Yeah. Especially if they don't see it as a problem. Because they can get fat guys.
Well, but also men have this masking thing where, like, it's not a problem because I say it's not.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm suffering. Yes, it's terrible. But this is also at the heart of why you don't see a lot of men in the fat liberation movement. It's like, I'm a guy. I'm used to this. It's okay. I'm fine. Yeah, I get slings and arrows and I can't fit places and I get discrimination and the gay community is shitty to me. But, like, so what?
Yeah.
It would be womanly to complain about it.
Yeah.
It would be emasculating to complain about it.
Well, and I think there's also something of, like, Don and I have a lot of perspective of being fat for most of, if not our entire lives, and navigating all of the, like, fat phobia in family space, in friend space, in coworker space, in everywhere space. But it is, and there's a lot of advice we can give, but I think it is less useful than a chaser, fat admirer, encourager, whatever, dealing with like, okay, I'm going to be dating a very fat person, and I'm going to be introducing them to my friends and coworkers and family, and we're going to be going on vacations together, and like, how do I take care of them and also like just introduce them to my world when I know that like my parents are fat phobic as hell. You know, my coworkers make jokes about fat people, and I have just kind of silently sat there. And to be able to give advice as like, well, was my experience when I was, you know, dating this guy, and like I lost some friends because they just were fat phobic, and like that might happen, but you know.
Oh, you mean like coming out as gay?
Like, I think that's probably why the groups of people dating fat people, you know, the straight fat admirers are probably the worst because they have zero framework.
That was my point. Yeah.
They haven't come out, so they just are like, what? Like, but I'm a man. I just get to do what I want. And
yeah, I made this point in a lot of my seminars at BBW conferences that like straight white men are the least equipped for this because the world has been made for them. They've never had any coming out experience. Ever, right? Maybe they came out in like D&D, but that was their big hurdle, right? And so they have the fewest tools. But as gay men, even white gay men, you at least have one coming out experience. And it transfers. And so many chasers talk about it being like a second closet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm developing this thing I'm calling the entertainment empathy theory, where whatever movies and TV shows you watch, how often are you called on to empathize with a character that doesn't share your gender, race, or sexuality? White men almost never are required to do that. In fact, when you see shows where there is no white male protagonist, you get pushback on the lack of a white male protagonist.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Acolyte.
I, for the first time, was watching Crazy Rich Asians on the plane back from New York. And I was remembering, because I'd heard about this movie forever, just never actually watched it. It's lovely. It's wonderful. And I remember during the making of it, or when it was in pre-production, there was this push. It's based on a novel. There was a push of like, oh, well, you need to have a white girl there because otherwise, how will the audience relate?
Yeah.
With this like default, like, well, no one could possibly understand it if there weren't a white protagonist.
But with my theory of entertainment empathy, right? I am required with every single show I watch to empathize with a character who shares traits that I do not share.
Yes.
Every show on television. I feel like straight white men, maybe 40% of the shows on TV require them to empathize with someone outside of their norm.
Maybe. And that's now.
I think that's way too high.
Yeah, that's pretty generous.
I'm being very generous, but...
And video games, even worse.
Oh my God.
Video games, the closest you get is they make a female protagonist, but they make her the sex object.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to empathize. They just have to be turned on by her.
Yeah.
Well, and that's her function.
And then they remake the game and her boobs are smaller and everyone's mad.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. No, that happened with Tomb Raider. That literally happened with Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Literally unplayable. 0 out of 10.
How will we recognize the character without size triple Ds?
And breast physics.
So chasers, encouragers, fat admirers, feeders, fat furs. I feel like do the fat furries have this civilian problem? Like, I'm not a fat fur, I'm a civilian. I don't know. Take some time, come together, talk through your things, and maybe you're not a civilian. Maybe you really, really just want to date fat guys, and that's good, and you'll figure it out. I would love if chasers, encouragers, fat admirers, let us know your stories of like incorporating your fat partners into your family, your friends, like that experience.
We need some success stories to share.
Yeah. I would love to hear what was the moment when you're like, oh, wow, I'm really in this. Yep. I'm really in it for the long term. Like, because it does change your life. The fatter your partner, the more it will affect your partnership. Yeah.
Do we have a tip for the day?
We do have a tip. So it's still Fat Liberation Month, and NAFA is doing a virtual auction fundraiser where you can bid online on a number of things. Everything from a Big Fig mattress in the size of your choosing to virtual coffee with Tigress. You can pick Tigress's Halloween costume if you win that.
Nice.
There are books, there's artwork, there's a cake mirror, like a mirror that looks like a cake, all sorts of cool things. You can get a robe from Peridot Robes, who
those are
frequent
lovely.
Feature in our virtual gift guide. All sorts of cool things. If you go to nafa.org/auction, you can see everything. You can bid. Bidding goes until August 31st at 4 p.m. Pacific. And then there is a little online virtual Vet Liberation Month rep party, and they will announce the winners of each of the items. So check it out. Again, that is NAFA.org/auction. Get some stuff and support Vet Liberation.
Yeah, excellent. How about a bit?
For the bit today, it's going to be a little bit of a get to know session where what are we civilians on truly? What are things that we know nothing about and what are things that we enjoy? I've asked each of the boys to bring in two things. One, a subject that they're very interested in, and two, a subject they know nothing about. But they're going to present it to me as though they know everything about both of them. And I'm going to have to guess after asking one question, which subject is truly their passion and which one are they a civilian for? So, Michael, let's start with you.
Okay.
Michael, what passions have you brought to share with us today?
I brought two things that are very, very different.
Okay.
And so hopefully this results in some interesting prognosticating. First up, I enjoy going to the driving range more than actual golf because it's purely about how far and how cleanly you can hit the ball as opposed to like the stress of having to like follow it down the course and, you know, chase it down the road and do other things. Like the golfing aspect, no, but the driving range, absolutely. Or I enjoy paying bills because of the satisfying feeling I get of progressively zeroing out the line items on my budget sheet.
Oh, God. Okay, both of those sound like they could be very satisfying. Michael, what's the farthest you've hit a ball to your knowledge?
I think the farthest I've ever hit it is about 200 yards. But honestly, I wasn't so much focused on, like, it's a relatively new hobby. And I wasn't so much focused on distance. I was focused on how clean the strike is, as opposed to like slicing it or undercutting it. Like you want it to go the direction you want to go. That was more what I was.
I think that sounds truthful. And I think the act of money leaving your bank account might also be somewhat stressful. So I'm going to say golf is the thing that you're actually experimenting with now.
Incorrect.
I knew. I got it.
No, I was the get bills. A weird satisfaction out of paying my bills. I guess I'm lucky that way.
Oh, okay. Dan, what two passions have you brought to share today?
Like a lot of young boys, I was interested in Baroque architecture and Mayan hieroglyphic writing.
So it's one of those two?
Yes.
Okay.
I did, not the combination, no.
I was going to say, like, Baroque Mayan hieroglyphic writing could be very difficult to find. What is your favorite example of Baroque architecture, Dan?
I would say some of the works by Bernini.
Bernini. Okay, I'm realizing right now that like I don't know anything about Baroque architecture, so that answer is completely useless to me.
As by design, Don. But
he's leaning into the Italian there, so I'm going to say I don't remember you ever talking about Mayan hieroglyphics, so I'm going to go with the Baroque architecture. Oh well, goddamn it, I don't know any of you.
So sorry, Don.
0 for 2.
I took a course in grad school, most ill-advisedly, in Mayan epigraphy. Nearly killed me, but God, that nearly killed me, but very mind-opening, like with pliers.
That's interesting. I love that. Trevor, help me out here. I need to get one right today. I'm going to look like Michael.
Both of mine are kind of like, I don't know, creative, crafty, because that's just kind of the person I am.
Okay.
So the first is knitting. I was taught to knit as a child, and I was my grandma, and it was very much a strong opinions as knitters often do. I was, raised that they have to be the wooden, not steel, plastic.
Really?
No synthetic yarn, wool. I cannot do acrylic. It has to be wool. My other is infusing liqueurs, even though I don't drink.
Interesting.
I find it very satisfying to just kind of get my little infusions, my mix-ins, fill up a big jar, and kind of like a witch, just put it in the back of the cabinet and come back and be like, yes, and shake it up, give it a stir. Depending on the infusions, a week, a couple weeks. I did one that was 2 months where I just kept going back, shaking it up, watching the infusions degrade, but also enrich the liqueur.
Interesting. All right. Let me ask you this question. Which do you prefer, wood or metal knitting needles, and why?
Wood, because I feel even if it is very smooth, I feel there's still just the grain that keeps things from slipping, whereas the metal knitting needles, I feel like are just too slippery and it just doesn't feel right, especially because like maybe if I was an acrylic girly, but because I'm using wool, I just need it to be very natural. It's just it feels right. I don't like the metal or acrylic.
That is a very honest knitter's answer. I'm going to go with the knitting being the thing that you feel more passion for.
No, I don't know shit about knitting.
Boo.
I was Googling like knitting stuff. I was gonna be like, oh yeah, a basket weave stitch is my favorite stitch. None of that herringbone.
Because the wooden knitting needles, that is 100% my choice, and for the reasons you said. So I completely believe you.
So the tell is, because I didn't know until the second one when Trevor was talking about infusing, and I was like, oh, well, I actually know he likes that. But the tell was talking about feeling like a witch and going, putting the brew in the back. And that is like, that is Trevor all over.
Yeah. He has a hat for it.
Well, we literally did a photo shoot where his Halloween costume was like this great, like witchy garb. And we went to the witch house in Beverly Hills and I took pictures of him.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Trevor, if our listeners also have that witchy thing going on and enjoy putting together their own sort of brewing concoctions and infusions, where can they tell us about them?
Well, we're on Instagram and Blue Skies at Big Fat Gay Pod. Write us a review or leave us 5 stars on Facebook or your preferred podcast platform. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/bigfatgaypod. See the articles we posted or more at www.bigfatgaypod.com. Baby, well, maybe you are a little hunched over witch. You're not walking, you're on your fists pulling yourself to the kitchen. And you're going deep into the back of the cabinet to stir your brew to check it. Is it infused? Is it murky? Is it lovely? You shake the jar and you see something and you're like, that doesn't look like a plum. Where's my plum? And you see it's Michael, he's a mouse and he's eating your plums.
After him.
Watch out, sorry.